Welcome to the Livfiit Listens podcast, a safe space of growth, personal development, and overall wellness with your host, Olivia Catania. Diving into the realms of all things health, conscious living, mental expansion, and much more, this podcast is designed to help you evolve into your best self and live fit. Let's get into the show. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Livfiit Listens podcast. This feels weird. It feels really, really weird. The last time I recorded and uploaded an episode was literally a month ago, which is, I'm so ashamed to share and say. I always feel like I am very ambitious, where like last time I was like, oh yeah, next episode's going to be, Q&A. And I just didn't account for the fact that my retreats were starting the next 2 weeks. And then it just like easily compounds to 3. So now like this is our 4th week. Anyway, time got away from us, sister, and we can't go back and change the past, but we can move forward and be better. I'm officially back here in Utah. I got back on Monday. It's now Saturday when I'm recording this, so I've been back for about a week, and I'm trying to get back into the flow, back into the routine. I'm trying to just get back into my consistency when it comes to content creation, my normal schedule that I had set, because I kind of felt like when I was in Costa Rica, things kept kind of popping up. But with that being said, brief little recap of Costa Rica. I can't believe it already came and went. Like now that I'm sitting here, it feels like I never left. But when I was there, it felt like I was gone for so freaking long. The Costa Rica experience was something so powerful, so healing, so magical. And I experienced so much resistance when I first had got there. Like it was really hard for me to find comfortability, because it was such a foreign environment, no pun intended. And I just was so homesick. And I think just simply me sticking that out and pushing through that and working through it helped me grow so freaking much as a human. And it almost makes that time more special to me, because it just was more rewarding, I guess is a better way to put it, because I was able to come out on the other side and like still be so appreciative and nostalgic of my time there, if that makes sense. So I'm proud of myself for working through those difficulties and that uncomfortability, because that's where I found so much growth, and it was such a rewarding and special experience because of that. And I just look back, like I feel like I did so much in the 5 weeks that I was in Santa Teresa. Like I met so many people. I felt like I did everything that I wanted to do. Like I did the surf camp, which was so amazing. I'm so thankful I did that. I was able to go attend a retreat. Like I just feel like so much happened, and so many amazing things fell into my lap, which thank you, uni. And then, of course, the final 2 weeks of the trip was such a beautiful way to finish things off. Like the 2 retreats that I hosted were something that was so life-changing for me, which I think is ironic, because you would think like, oh, like I'm the host and like I'm putting these on to help change other people's lives. But like my life was also changed from those 2 weeks. And I think even at the core of just simply being able to experience new souls, like that was the coolest part of me, to me, was just like being able to experience just people's presence and their essence and who they are and what makes them them. Like something about that is so cool to me, because I loved every single person, like every single girl on the retreat I thought was so cool. And like I don't know if this is like a people watching thing that I do, but like I just love observing people and just holding space for them and seeing what makes them them. Like it just, the way they talk, the way they express themselves, their style. Like I love observing that, which I know could be taken as something weird, but I mean that in the best way. Like every single woman that was there was so beautiful, and the way that they were able to articulate themselves and just the depth of their heart and their soul and their empathy and their compassion like blew me away. Like truly every single woman on both of those weeks were such truly genuinely amazing human beings. And it was so humbling for me to be like, wait, these girls care about what I say? Like every single one of these people are so amazing. Like the fact that they even can look up to what I'm saying, like it was just so surreal and so amazing. And just the healing that was able to be done through the collective space was really, like, honestly indescribable. And I think that was a huge thing that I underestimated, which I definitely have touched on this before, like on my Instagram stories. Like when I was planning these retreats, I felt like the bigger takeaway would be from the workshops and just more so like on the individual scale of individual reflection and journaling and individual meditation. And I totally underestimated the healing that's done through the healing on the collective level and through like the sisterhood and the community that was formed from those spaces in that container. Like the girls just being being able to offer advice and insight to one another and just simply just venting and just being held in a supportive space with a supportive group of people who are actually on your team, like that in and of itself was so healing. Like just the environment, the container was so powerfully healing, and every single girl felt it. Every single girl said it, just like how potent that energy is. And it was, I said this one of the first days where when we were getting on the shuttle, how I felt like it was like bringing me back to like high school sports days when we were on the bus. And I was reflecting on that, and I was like, but there always was kind of this underlying like competitive aspect to it in a sense. And so this was like the first time, especially in adulthood, especially out of college, where you're able to be in a community of women and have it truly be like every single one of these people are on your team and are rooting for you and are on your team. And we just don't experience that anymore, like as we get older. And like that truly was the most special part of the whole experience, like of both experience of the 2 weeks, was simply just like the community and the sisterhood and like truly feeling like these people are rooting for you and feeling like you have this sense of belonging and like group that you can confide in and like resonate with. I don't know. And also, yeah, with that, like how everyone just automatically had such like-minded, like we're all so like-minded. And like I forgot about that until like the first few days when people would talk about like angel numbers and working out and spirituality, and every time I'd be like, I'm into that, then I would hear something else, be like, wait, I'm into that too. And then someone else was talking about working out and I'm like, I'm into that. And then I was like, no shit, dude, like we're all a part of the same community, like hence why we all like have like similar interests and stuff, of course with different opinions and all that sort of stuff, but like we all have similar shared values, and like that was so cool to me too. So it just was so absolutely amazing and surreal. I just was blown away. Like truly that was the most powerful, most rewarding, most transformative thing I've ever done in my career ever. I'm so proud of those 2 weeks. I'm so proud of every single girl that attended. I'm so thankful for every single one that trusted me, that took a chance on me and was willing to be a part of the first ever, few Livfiit retreats. That meant so much to me. So I'm going to kind of put book a earmark in that, an ear tag in that for a second, because I know that I could talk forever about that, and I know this is going to be a long episode because we're doing a Q&A. Anyways, yes, in case you weren't aware, today's a Q&A. Also, quick thing, if you're watching on YouTube, look at my little bouquet of flowers here that I wanted to include because I never really have enough little prop stuff to make this look cute. And look how cute. My boyfriend got me these for my birthday. And I'm also wearing this really cute, it's actually a matching set from Free People that my boyfriend also got me for my birthday, so shout out Lade. Also, yeah, my birthday was on Monday the 26th, so I'm officially 24, which is nuts, which basically means I'm not in my early 20s anymore. Am I having a crisis? Not really, but am I aware of it, that I'm no longer in my early 20s? Yes. Is it leaving a good taste in my mouth? No. But am I kind of content with it? A little bit. But man, feels crazy getting older. Okay, anyways, I'm going to get into these questions. We can continue the retreat talk at another point in time because I also have a couple of announcements moving forward about the whole shebang. But I felt weird just not even I couldn't just give you a new episode without even doing a mini debrief on the retreats. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so here we go. Oh my gosh, wait, Tio. And I forgot about gratitude. Guys, I'm sporadic today. Okay, my gratitude, really quickly, I'm so grateful for my whole entire Costa Rica experience, which I'm sure you guys could have anticipated for me to say that. Like everything about it, all the retreats, me attending the retreat that I had gone to, just every single experience, the surf camp, that whole entire, like Costa Rica as a whole is so precious to me now. Like so much growth was done there. Like I feel like, for example, in Hawaii, that kind of phase was more so me just like, I was so in my expressive state. I was so like, that was me just like in my flow. And I went through growing pains there, but I feel like this Costa Rica trip was something different. And it's just obviously in a different way. But I feel like so much healing was done and it means so much to me. But I also am very thankful to be home. It feels very good to be home. I was so homesick, especially in the beginning. And it's so comforting being back. The weather is beautiful. And there's like many things that I really missed about being home that I wasn't getting like being out of the country, So I'm feeling thankful for that too. Okay, circling back. Do I struggle with comparing my physique? I used to way more. When I used to be way more consumed with my physique. I don't really anymore. Really because I'm taking this in two ways. I'm reading this as like, do I compare it to other people? But then I'm also reading this as like, do I compare my physique to my past self? Because we'll get to that. But in terms of comparing it to other people, I don't anymore. I used to in the beginning, like when I thought that you could work out to achieve someone else's body. And I just have I've come to learn that you can't, like you can eat and train the exact same way as the person next to you and still look completely different. Like genetics play a huge role in how your muscle forms, the shape, all that sort of stuff. So I really have learned not to compare, but I very much so can appreciate, like, I'm like, damn, she looks amazing. Like that would be nice to look like that. But I don't really ever compare it to myself because I'm so aware now that it's like comparing an apple to an orange or an apple to freaking watermelon. Like it's not the same. So you can't compare the same, but I can still appreciate that a watermelon looks juicy and nice. You know what I'm saying? But I do still sometimes struggle with comparing my physique to my past self, which I think is so real. And so many people experience that. And I think that's just us being our own like harshest critic. And I mean, it's hard not to, especially when I've gone through phases of being more disciplined and stuff where I like compare myself to how I looked then. But then I also tell myself, like, was I actually happy, enjoying life? Like my life was consumed by fitness at that point in my life, which kind of helps to keep things in perspective. And I also remind myself that I guarantee in a year I'll look at pictures of myself now and think I look great now and not good then, you know? So I kind of just I feel like I've gotten so much better over the years of just kind of detaching from that and kind of almost gaslighting myself and being like, Liv, you're being ridiculous. Like, there's no way your body changed this much from 2 days ago or vice versa. Like, I feel like that really hit me the other day where I saw an old photo of myself and I was like, dude, you've always had the same structure of, you know, bone structure and body shape. Like, because there's been times where I beat myself up of like, I look so much better back then. And like the other day it hit me, I was like, dude, you really didn't. Like, you kind of have always looked this way in one sense or another. Not to degrade myself, but just in the sense of saying like you're in your head way too much. You know? Do I have some physique goals at the moment? Right now, I didn't for so long, but right now I'm really trying to build my booty gains back up because I was not lifting heavy or really pushing myself when I was in Costa Rica. So the past like 2 months, I was really only like lifting legs once a week maybe, and I wasn't really going very hard. And I definitely feel like I lost some booty gains. So that's my biggest thing right now. I'm so happy with where my upper body is though. Like I love the muscle definition that's coming through. I do feel like overall my hormones are so much better, which has made me feel like my physique is looking better. But I would like to definitely try to get some glute mass back because I feel like it was dwindling away. Next question. Best way to make yourself accept something for what it is and let it go. Going through a breakup. Oof. These are so hard. First of all, sending you a big hug and lots of love. Breakups break my heart just because I know how much emotion like goes into that. Best way to make yourself accept something for what it is and let it go. Not to be so annoying, but really time. And I want you to know, like, I went through a situation where kind of a similar breakup situation. And it took me literally over a year to accept that like it just was not happening and to let it go. Like so long. It took so much inner healing work, so much detachment, like meditations on this shit. Like it took me so long. So I understand, but I just feel like I feel like this isn't going to be super constructive, but I do feel like it is just something that you have to have grace with yourself with. Like sometimes, at least in my experience, no matter how many times I told myself, like, you got to let it go and move on. Like there just still was something within me that was attached. So I think having grace with yourself and like putting in the aligned action daily to take the steps to move past it. You know what I mean? Like affirm to yourself that it's okay to let go. Affirm to yourself that you need to accept what your current reality is, you know, like journal, say things that you want to say to the person and like write it out and then burn the note. Like that's a big activity where you like write a letter to the person and then burn it. Stuff like that where you're helping to kind of release any pent up like stagnant or stale energy from the situation. But I do feel like at the end of the day, there's kind of a higher healing timeline for all of us. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's always a time where it kind of clicks for me. And I'm just like, well, okay, I can finally put it down. But like, it's almost like in previous times when I'm just not ready in my healing process and I keep trying so hard to put it down. No matter how hard I try, I just can't put the burden that I'm carrying down. And so I do kind of feel like there comes a time in divine timing where you're ready to release it. And when you have learned that lesson. So my biggest piece of advice is to have grace with yourself. Keep putting in the effort to heal and to move forward. But don't be so hard on yourself when you feel like it's not happening soon enough, because if anything, that's just going to keep that energy still stuck and stagnant. And clearly it's like, it's almost like reinforcing the fact that you're not learning the lesson that needs to be learned. So stay open, honor your healing timeline, take the steps that you need to take, and trust that kind of that epiphany and that release will come find you when it's meant to find you when you are ready in your healing. Next question. What is a quality you have that you are passionate about? I feel like I'm a very passionate person. So when I first read that, I was like, a quality you have that you're passionate about, it made me think of being passionate. So I'm passionate about being passionate. But I think my biggest one is honesty and like being genuine / authentic. Can that all be one thing? Because I'm honest almost to a fault sometimes. Not really, but I'm just so honest and so transparent. And so I cannot stand the thought of like people living a lie, whether they're lying to themselves, lying to people in their lives, pretending something that they're not. I can't do it. I can't get behind it. I can't associate with people who are like that. Like I'm so deterred away from, like it's so dishonest, and it seems like such a fall in character. Like I just could never, such a lack of integrity, and just such like I can't respect you if I don't feel like you're an honest, thorough, authentic human being. Next question. What are your top tips for someone who wants to solo travel? Freaking do it. I have this newfound, like, especially because that was my first time solo traveling, like outside of the country. Dude, if you want to freaking grow, if you want to just feel like the world is your oyster, if you just want to feel like the most invincible, empowered human ever, please go solo travel. I just can't recommend it enough. I feel like I grew so much. Like I have such a different perspective of the world. And every time I travel, and especially leave the country, I become so humbled by seeing other people's versions of life and how they live life. And honestly, seeing like how some people grew up, like it makes me feel so grateful for the way that I grew up. And it just makes me realize that like home is so subjective, and it can mean so many different things for so many different people. And the way that I grew up isn't the right way to necessarily grow up. It's just my story, but everyone else has their own story. It's so eye-opening, and I feel like it allows you like not only to see all the beauty in the world and like all the potential that's out there, but also like really greatly allows you to appreciate where you came from, which I think is something very special and kind of isn't the first thing that you think of would be a takeaway from traveling, So my biggest top tips for solo traveling, definitely make sure you do your research like through and through. Like no matter where I go when I'm traveling, like I am freaking like I'm not that person that just kind of like, woo, go, like I'll figure it out. That's not my vibe, especially for a solo female. I think if I was like with my boyfriend or I had a group of friends or I was with my sister, I would be more down for that. But like I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm not safe. Like my number one tip for you, I guess, for solo traveling is to make sure that you're doing it safely. Not to sound like a mom, but it's so real, dude. Like you're far away. You want to go live your life and be spontaneous and do all these things until something actually shit hits the fan, and then your closest resource is literally across the ocean, So it's like I am very careful when I'm traveling. Even with the activities that I'm doing, I try to do it in a very safe manner. So do your research, make sure you know where you're like the town that you're at, how safe that town is going to be, the dynamic of the town, where you're staying. If you're planning on doing a hostel, is it a safe hostel? All that sort of stuff, I think goes a really long way. And it also allows you just to kind of know more so what to expect and to get your bearings. And then another tip that's coming to mind that's more of a mindset thing is just be open-minded and allow yourself to be comfortable in the uncomfortability. Like no matter which way you slice the cake, solo traveling can be scary. You might need to deal with airline stuff, or there's just things that come up that you're going to have to do alone, but you have to take a breath, understand that you're strong, that you can do it, and have patience with yourself, and know that you working through it is what's going to allow you to become more wise and cultivate all these life experiences. So have patience with yourself and know that the uncomfortability will pass at some point, and it's going to be, at one point, it's going to transmute into you feeling like a limitless superwoman. That actually kind of ties into this next question. Shout out Anna. She was a girl on the retreat. Your overall takeaway after living in Costa Rica for 7 weeks. I think my overall takeaway, like I feel like I learned so much, but my overall takeaway was just that, like the world is so beautiful. Just the polarity of the fact of like the world is so beautiful. It's so big. There's so much to see. Like I feel so limitless when I'm traveling, but on the complete polar opposite side of that, like it made me appreciate so much of my home life. And how I grew up and the comfortability that comes with being at home. And I think that also is just me like overall getting older. I think in previous years, I kind of wanted nothing to do with home / I always felt like it was holding me back. But I feel like I really saw home in a new appreciation during this time away. And it just made me appreciate the beauty of how I grew up. Like, it was really weird. Like, cause it was so beautiful. And I'm actually so excited to share this because I felt like I would see myself looking at new scenes, right? Like something random. Like I would look up at a hotel and see this guy up on his balcony. And like, for some reason that would give me a flash to like my grandpa watering his flowers at like my grandma's camp growing up. Like I would see new experiences, or I would be in new environments while I was in Costa Rica, like experiencing and appreciating like, whoa, like this is so cool, a new experience. But then like at the same time, I would like get a flash to like an old childhood memory of like little things, like going into my Grandma Tino's house on Christmas, like random, really niche things. Like it gives me the chills now. It was really beautiful. So I guess my biggest takeaway was just, I felt like kind of this weird mirror of the polarity of like the beauty of newness and also the comfortability of the familiar, I guess, in the old and in the past. So yeah, made me really appreciate where I came from, and also the beauty of what's out there was like my biggest realization and takeaway. Next question. These are kind of little random ones, but figured I'd answer. How do you decide who you blur and who you don't blur in your videos? This is something I started to do like 6-ish months ago now, because at first I didn't know how to do it, and I didn't even realize it was an issue until it was brought to my attention. I was like, okay, maybe I should blur. So I really only blur when I feel like someone's like their square face is like looking dead into the camera. If it's like their side profile or the back of their head, I won't traditionally blur them. But if their like face is directly towards the camera, that's what I will tend to blur. And then the next follow-up question for that is, do you have to go and ask every individual for their permission, like to be filmed? And no, I don't. It is a public space. You're completely allowed to film in there. So I don't, it's not like I'm filming these people and they're my main focus. Like it's totally legal to film in public places. It's completely legal for me to film in a park. So it's like the people in the background of whatever video I'm filming at the park, I don't need to have their consent. It would be different if I'm like making videos about other people in the gym, or I'm interviewing other people for the sake of content. Like my content has absolutely nothing to do with the people in the back. So I don't need to ask for their permission. I'm not like intentionally putting them on blast or anything like that. They're just bystanders in the background. So I don't have to ask for their permission. Have you tried different forms of breath work? There's so many kinds. IDK, where to start? I have. I wouldn't say I'm super advanced in the breathwork realm, but I have definitely done my fair share of breathwork. I took a breathwork class that was really cool and interesting. I think in terms of where to start, like so many people, because I did have a little breathwork section of my retreat, so many people think that breathwork, like it just kind of seems intimidating. I feel like, but breathwork literally can just be you taking 3 deep breaths, like deep belly breaths, and focusing on your breath. Like that's all. The core of breathwork is just to allow you to get to the present moment. Because if you think about your breath, like it is the only, like it is currently happening. It is always in process. Like it is in the now. It is always happening, like moment to moment. I don't know how, like when I realized that, it was kind of mind blowing that like your breath really is the thing that is truly in the present moment, that is like happening on its own, whether you're trying to or not. So that's really the biggest core purpose of it. So there's no need to make it anything bigger than it is and like overstress yourself out by you have to do all these fancy things. Like even just taking time in the morning to sit down, close your eyes, and take like 5 deep big breaths through your nose and then out through your mouth like a straw. Like that in and of itself will calm you so much, will ground you so much, will clear your head so much. Like I'm a huge fan of breath work, especially when I get like overwhelmed, or like I had a really bad travel experience coming back from Costa Rica. Like there's a point where I just had to stand there and just take like a few really deep big breaths. I closed my eyes. Being able to find your center in that way and being able to find comfortability and peace and presence in that way is a really powerful tool that always will be with you throughout life. So I feel like the sooner you can kind of develop that habit to turn to that breath work to self-regulate, you know, the sooner that you're able to be just a more balanced human being going through life and a less reactive human. I also like to really focus on the whole, like the breath in its entirety. So I try to breathe in until I literally can't anymore. My belly is really expanded. And then I try to breathe out as much as I can till my belly button is like completely pinched to my spine. Another really common breath work activity, it's called the box breath. This is actually really simple to share with you guys. So you're essentially going to inhale for a certain amount of time, hold that breath for a certain amount of time, exhale for a certain amount of time, and then hold for a certain amount of time. So the longer time that you have of inhaling, of like the longer number, I guess, if you will, for that box, the slower you're going to be inhaling and exhaling, because you're trying to basically adapt that breath for that length of time. Whereas opposed to if you're shortening that length of time, you're going to be breathing in and out faster to try to get a full breath within that period. So for example, if I'm doing a 5-second box breath, I'm trying to breathe in as all the air that I can within that 5 seconds, hold the 5 seconds, and blow it all out within 5 seconds, and hold that exhale for 5 seconds. So you want it to be very steady, right? You're not trying to blow it all out in 2 seconds. If your box breath is 5 seconds, you want to be timing your exhale so that the start of the 5 seconds to the end of the 5 seconds, like you are able to have breath to blow out all the way until the end of that 5 seconds, and then you should be out of air. So I'll usually will go up from like 5 seconds up to 10 seconds. You can go back down. Like that could be just purely your meditation for the day. Start with box breaths from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and work your way back down as well. But that's a really great one because it allows you to really focus on your breath. How do you handle doing things alone instead of waiting for people to do them with? Good freaking question, Melanie. I feel passionate about this one because I just resonate. Like I'm kind of a loner. I don't have a really big circle. Surprise, surprise. I say that as if that was like breaking news. I have a small circle. I've kind of always been that way. Like I've had the people who are in my circle and we're ride or dies but that's it. Like I'm not someone who kind of entertains very shallow relationships, which has gotten me like in trouble in other times and whatever. So I get it. And for me, like it was a conscious decision of something that I end up wanting to do because it's like, I don't know when these people who want to do these things with me or be able to do these things with me will come into my life. And it's like, because I feel this way right now, like I'm only getting older. I really want to have a family someday. And like, I want to be able to be present with my kids. And so it's just like, we also don't know when our last day is like, and I think it baffles me. Because I'm the same way. Like it baffles me with how much I just forget that sometimes. Like as we wake up daily as if this life is promised and guaranteed and as if we have a right to it. Like it is such a privilege and a blessing to be here every single day and to wake up every day. And so it's like we just need to seize. It just hits me sometimes where I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like I need to be seizing every single opportunity of this. Like so many people are like, oh, I'll go do this cool thing in a year or two, or once I find a boyfriend, or once I find a girl group, I'll travel to Europe and all this stuff. I'm like, who says that there's going to be a once you find your girl group? You know what I mean? Like our time here is so not guaranteed. So I just have like really been keeping that in mind. And I'm like, if I want to do something, I do it now, because the next thing you know, you blink and it's freaking 5 years. And we always think there's a better time. There's always thinks there's going to be like a better way to do things, but you just have to freaking do it. Like even like Hawaii last year, like that's something I could have been like, oh, I'll wait to do it another time. But then like even now being in a relationship, like I feel like the way I think about traveling could be so different if I was kind of sucked into that traditional like relationship mindset. Like maybe I wouldn't have gone to Hawaii if I felt like way too, like clung to my boyfriend, or I wouldn't have even gone to Costa Rica, and then I wouldn't have even had these experiences. Like, and they're such an integral part of who I am now and my view of the world. So it's just like, there really is no later. There really is no waiting. Like if you are able to do it now, you need to do it now. Like that's truly all we have is the present moment, and nothing is guaranteed. And I think also, I guess, how to handle doing it alone, it's just romanticizing it, and it's finding peace and the solace. And that was also something like my sister told me that I was like, thank you for that slap in the face, because when I first went to Costa Rica, I felt very lonely. I was like, I don't really know if I have this urge to solo travel anymore. Like, to be honest, that was one of my initial reactions. And she was like, well then, do your best to cherish this time, find peace in your solace, because you don't never know, like then maybe this may be your last solo trip. And I know like it's how humans work. We always look back on past experiences with nostalgia and with fondness, which I truly think is a beautiful thing. And it's what allows us to continue going through life, hopefully, is because we're able to reminisce on great things that happened to us. So it makes us feel like, oh, look at all these great things that can still happen in front of us. So I know there's going to be a day where I would miss having the opportunity to pick up everything and go by myself. Like, it is actually a privilege to do things alone. Of course, it's also a privilege to be around people you love. Don't get me wrong. But there's also something so special and freeing and amazing of just being able to pick up and go, not needing to worry about other people's opinions, of other people's schedules, of other people's wants, needs. Like, you can literally do anything that you want. Like, how freeing is that? How empowering is that? So kind of keeping all those things in mind helped me remember the beauty and the excitement and the freedom that comes with independent travel. What was your religious background before coming into connection with the universe? I was raised very Catholic. I was baptized, went through majority of the 7 sacraments, like baptized. I went through penance and reconciliation, first communion, got confirmed as well, and that was all like led by me. Like, my siblings didn't get confirmed, my parents didn't push me to get confirmed, so I've always been like faithful, is what I like to say. Like, I've always had faith in a higher power, but I don't really believe in, I don't align with a lot of the church's teachings, and there's been so much corruption within religion, so I'm not a fan of religion itself, but I'm so much of a fan of faith and spirituality. And that's not to say that I don't believe in God. I think people also get that really mixed up with me. Like, I do believe in a higher power. I'm not entirely certain if I feel the need to personify that power, but I'm so comfortable with using the terms of God, universe, source, all interchangeably. How are you not scared of flying? Been such a limit for me lately. PS, love you. Thank you. Love you too. I have been flying ever since I was really little. And I think along with anything, like, there's risks literally everywhere. Again, something I think we all overlooked. You know how dangerous driving a car is, traveling in a car? It's more dangerous to go travel in a car than it is to go fly in an airplane. Like, that alone is fact, point blank. I say that as if I haven't. I don't actually have a statistic to pull up to support that. Maybe we should look it up. But like, if you think about it, it seems to be, let's look this up. Is it a greater risk to drive in a car or fly in an airplane? The numbers are clear. Flying is much safer than driving. Thank you. So, realistically, like, it's just nothing to be scared of. Like, risks are everywhere. So many things that we do are dangerous that just become normalized. Even freaking drinking alcohol, okay, to the capacity that so many people do. So for me, it's just like, there's risks with everything. And so there's so many beautiful places that I want to see in the world. So I'm not going to let fear of flying hold me back from something that is so amazing and life-changing. The older I've gotten, the more actually flight anxiety I've had. It's still like super mellow. It's more so like I have intrusive thoughts when I didn't at all when I was younger. Like, I used to think of nothing. Like, this is great, wake me up when we get there. Now I do have more like what if thoughts, but they're not consuming. But I think it's just me getting older and like understanding actually how things work more. But I would just say, like, there's dangerous things everywhere, and you can't let yourself, like, I've always been that huge advocate, like, you can't let the fear of failing or of getting hurt, like, stop you from playing and, like, living life, because there's risks in everything that you do. So if you want to sit inside and do nothing because you're scared of getting hurt, then, like, what quality of life would that be? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather risk it and try and, like, be living life than be scared and shy and, like, live a lifeless life, you know? What kind of content are you planning for the future? My content that I'm planning for the future is the getting back on freaking track. Like, I have been so all over the place. It's not even funny. So I'm trying to I feel like I've been a little bit stuck on YouTube. I have a lot of ideas for podcast episodes now. Like, I've gotten so much inspiration. So I have ideas written down for that. TikTok, I feel like I really want to get back on, like, my tutorial videos, my form tutorial videos, and just gym little vlogs. I want to get on there. But YouTube, I feel like, I don't know, I just want to get back into vlogs on YouTube again. Like, I love YouTube so much. That's when I feel the most connected to you guys. And I don't really necessarily have as many, like, video ideas, if you will, but, like, overall, I'm trying to show face on vlogs. You know what I'm saying? If your goal is to maintain muscle and not further hypertrophy, is it okay to switch your workouts all the time? Yes, I do that currently. I don't stick to one workout, like, for each day, every single day. Like, every single workout is different. I stick to the same compound movements. That's what I do, and I've been totally able to maintain my physique, and I love it, and it allows me to actually continue enjoying lifting, which is so important to me. What differences did you notice solo traveling now that you have a boyfriend? More homesick? Yes, I was so much more homesick, but I also really did like miss my mom. Last year when I went to Hawaii and stuff, my mom and I were not close. She didn't live here in Utah, and I didn't have, my family life was like worser at that point in time. It's gotten better, it's improved. So I just, yeah, and I didn't like my life here in Utah as much as I did now before I left. And also I was in a different place of my life before I went to Hawaii. Like at that point I was so ready for a change, and like I had such like a soul pull to leave. Like it felt so right. Like being here felt so wrong. And before I left here to go to Costa Rica, I didn't feel that craving for a change. I had so much contentment in my routine and stuff. So I think that's why it really hit me hard when I had to leave that, I guess. Ooh, here we go. Please talk about your shrooms trips, how you prepared and how you utilize them. I'm intrigued to learn. Okay, I really have only done one thorough trip with shrooms. Gonna be honest. I also love this because I feel like when I first started, like I feel like I brought this up like a year or two ago, and I was like super kind of nervous to like touch on it. And now I'm like, what the heck? Like I want to do it again. Anyway, so I really have only fully tripped once, and then I microdosed afterwards of that. But speaking of which, I've been really wanting to have another shrooms trip. I was going to try to do it in Costa Rica, but it just didn't really ever align. So maybe I'll be able to do one being back in Utah. But it truly was the best night of my life. So let me set the scene. It was 2 years ago, summertime. It was actually right before my birthday. And it was very like spur of the moment. Like we decided to go camping, and we originally had like this big group of us, like big, like 8 people. And then 8 to 10 people, I think. And then eventually kind of everyone bailed, and it ended up being me and 3 other of my friends. And they basically were all like older brothers to me. So I really trusted them and their guidance, and they're a decent bit older than me, and like they've had experience with shrooms, and like I had never tripped ever in my life on anything. So it was like very new to me. But circling back, we originally had a big group, and then slowly like everyone canceled. So like that was kind of my first synchronicity of like it just kind of fell into the way that the night was, I guess, if you will. Like it was never anticipated. We never like planned that we were going to have this small intimate group of us and like take shrooms. It totally was just the way the cards felt that night, and that's why it felt so right. And so I really didn't know until it was just us 4. We like started to kind of get the camp set up, and one of them, I don't even remember who it was like, hey, like, do you actually want to try some? And it just felt so right. Like, and I just was like, I just said yes, and it felt so right, and I'm so glad I did. And even now, like, makes you want to cry, like, because it was such a beautiful experience, and just everything was so perfect. And a part of me is like, I was so blessed and lucky to have such an amazing first experience, because I know that's not everyone's experience. But like I set an intention with one of my friends, which I think was so powerful for the trip itself, which I think people overlook. So like before we took them, we set our intention for why we're taking them. And I remember that so clearly. At first, it started off by having like giggles. And so I was like laughing really hard. And so, yeah, the whole night we basically were camping. So the whole time I was tripping, we were outside, which I think is the best way and the only way to do it, to be honest. So we were like sitting around the fire, and I was cracking up, and we were kind of having life conversations about things. And one of our friends there, he's very like, he's very analytical. So he was like asking a ton of questions and just like picking all of our brains. And then I also really understood why people call it a trip, because I felt like I was like going through different phases. Like I truly felt like I was going on a trip, like station 1, station 2, station 3, like there were so many phases within it. And then I remember, then it kind of hit me where I was in my feels, and I was just staring at the stars. I was standing there looking up, staring at the stars, and I didn't really see any visuals, because I know people have visuals when they're on shrooms, but I was just seeing like green and purple dots like with the stars, and I was just staring, and like this was still one of the most like powerful moments of my life. I felt such a sense of belonging. Like I felt so held in that moment by the universe. Like the what am I trying to say? The saying that we're all one. I felt that so hard in that moment. Like it all made sense to me. I truly felt my place in the universe, and I truly understood like through and through what that meant, that we were all one. We were all part of one another. And just everything looked HD, everything looked so beautiful, and I just felt like everything felt so connected to the universe, to nature, to everything around me, and it was so beautiful. And I just kind of had this like release. Like I wasn't crying, but there was tears coming out of my eyes. Like I just had emotion. Like it was just almost like this processing, like this release, and it was just so powerful, and it really freaking hit me. And I just felt so thankful for all the guys there that were with me and just like for feeling so safe during it. And I just felt there was just so much potency there. And I would so love to do it again. I feel like we took the perfect amount too. Like my friends guided me so well with how much to take. The beauty of it is you're able to just go to sleep. You don't have the spins or anything like that. And then you wake up the next day and you're feeling great. And my heart space, like that was another huge thing. My heart space felt so full and warm the next day. Like I was still on a high the next day, just of gratitude and just of feeling so whole and complete on my own and just feeling so grateful. Like I was like, I felt so at peace. Like that was my biggest takeaway with my Shrooms trip. Like I felt so at peace. I felt at peace with my place in the universe. I felt at peace with like why I'm here, and just like I felt like a puzzle piece like that was put back into the puzzle, and like I felt so calm like the whole next day. I wanted to like I literally I didn't even almost want to talk to people because I just was like almost in this meditative state of just like presence with my surroundings, and it was so beautiful. How do you deal with big life changes, moments when nothing will be the same after? That's such a good question. I always get hit so hard with those big life changes, and my initial answer when I read that is give yourself the time to mourn. I think like because I feel that so hard. Like there's ends of eras, right? There's times that you're never in phases that you're never going to get back in your life. And I think that's a real thing. And I think that's something that's worth honoring and feeling and like allowing that phase to come to a close. So a big thing for me, like I always get super emotional during big life changes and even just phases shifting, you know? And what helps me most is just mourning that process, mourning those phases, so I can actually honor it and kind of allow that space to come to a close instead of feeling like I have like a bunch of open wounds that are bleeding out. You know what I mean? So my biggest tip for how to deal with it is just to give yourself the space and the time to mourn that loss, because it is a type of death in your life. And, you know, time heals that, acknowledgement heals that, honoring heals that. And that's what really allows me to, it really carries me through the most. Do you ever feel lost? And if so, how do you combat that? Love your podcast. Thank you so much, Ellie. I 100% freaking feel lost. And here's the thing with social media. It's kind of this delicate dance because how do I explain this? You still want to stay in your power, right? And be able to be a guide for other people. And so there's so many creators who like don't feel safe to be able to feel like they don't feel safe to be able to share when they're down. But like when I read this comment, it's like, to me, like when I feel lost, there's something so comforting about understanding that I'm not the only one who goes through that, you know? So it's like, I feel like it does so much more for the collective to just, you know, stay vulnerable and say, yeah, no, I don't have it all together. Like so far from the truth. I do not have it all together at all. I still struggle from feeling lost. I struggle with imposter syndrome all the time. Like I'm a human being, and it's more so just about like working through it every day, that like that's what's respectable and that's what allows you to continue moving forward. So of course I feel lost. I do often. And I think how I combat it is my self-care practices. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. Like it is the only thing that really makes me feel so centered and grounded and reminds me who I am. Like if you feel lost and then you try to cope through alcohol or through partying or through friendships or through distractions, it's only leading you further away from the answer that you're seeking, which is always within yourself. So doing the most that I can to stay so in tune with my truest self, with my intuition, with that inner guidance and inner compass, that's what's going to always guide you when you're feeling lost. You have a compass literally within you. It's your intuition. It's your inner compass. So you need to get quiet and at least, you know, be able to hear yourself, to be able to know where your inner compass is guiding you so you don't feel lost anymore. So that's the biggest way I combat that is I just get centered with myself. I journal, I meditate, I really try to get close to the universe. I pray, you know, I do what I can to hear my inner voice again and quiet the noise, because I find when I feel the most lost, I'm about to drop it right here. I feel the most lost when I am constantly surrounded by the outside chatter and noise of the outside world. So if you're feeling lost, that's usually because you're, you know, getting lost in your should-haves, your could-haves, what you should be doing, what society wants you to do, what your friends are doing, in distractions, and you're not truly hearing yourself. Next question is from Maddie. She said, "Hey Liv, I love what you do so much, girl. You help me in so many ways." That's so sweet. Thank you. My question is, how do you know when you are in the place when it's time to grow alone? How do you not regret leaving people behind in that stage of life? Okay. I went through this personally in college, and I know it's so not easy. And to be fully, I was actually just talking about this with girls on the retreat. Like, I even look back on it in not the best way. I don't love the way that I handled the situation. It's still just like hard no matter which way you cut the cake. I think that how you know it's when it's time to grow on your own, it's just when these people in your circle are not serving you. If you feel like they're becoming more of a chore or more of a burden to bear, or you're trying to lift them up, and they're not really adding value to you, or you feel like they're kind of a cinder block to your foot, that's kind of when you know it's time to move on from them. It doesn't need to be something personal. It doesn't need to be something any deeper than that. They're not bad people. You guys are just at different phases in your life. You guys just aren't aligning anymore. And I think you need to value yourself and your higher self more to be able to walk away from a situation that's not serving you. And I think what's really interesting is we feel like, it's selfish if you value your quality of life over another. And I really don't believe in that. I don't agree with that. And I don't know if it's because of the view that I have with myself, but like, I truly see myself, like, I really do feel like I am my number one best friend. Like, they always say that you are the relationship you're going to have forever, for like the true for your lifetime. Like, I do see myself as two people and not as psycho way. Just like, I see my like body and my vessel as one thing, but like I see my inner consciousness as another, so it's like I feel like I see my ego and then my higher consciousness as two different people. And so to me, it's like I don't see it as like a selfish thing. I see it as me honoring my higher self to choose a decision that best serves me, because I do see myself as a best friend. So it's kind of like, in that sense, it's like how you would want the best for your best friend. It's like, if I am my best friend, why would I not want to continue to like evolve and like choose the best life path for me, if that makes sense? Like, it's nothing personal. Like, I hope the people that you're referring to, I hope they, have that awakening and choose their higher self every day too. But it's not your job necessarily to wake these people up. / everyone has their own healing timeline. And, you can still offer them love, and it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing, right? Like, you can decide your boundary with it. If you're willing to have them be in your life, just not in as much potency, that's another great thing to do. But I think it's just like slowly distancing yourself to understand that it's for the greater good of your own evolution. That's really important. Next question. How do you handle a breakup when you have simply just fallen out of love with them? I also wanted to answer this because I also went through this. And this was so hard. Like, this was really, really hard. I was crying when I was breaking up with my boyfriend at the time, for that same reason, because I just felt so badly for hurting him, because I do think there's a difference. Like, I did feel that same way. I didn't feel like I was in love with him anymore, but I still loved him. Of course, I still love him to this day. I still care about him to this day. I still like wish all the best for him, and I still feel for him that I put him through heartbreak. Like, I knew what heartbreak felt like from someone, like, of me still being in love with someone as he was, and I hated to be that person to him. But at the end of the day, it's like it wasn't serving either of us. Like, he deserved someone who was so infatuated and amazed and in love with him as he was with me. It's like I felt like that was my biggest wake up call, was like it was doing him a disservice of kind of lying to him in the sense of like, I don't feel like I'm giving him the amount of love that someone who's really in love with him could, and that's not fair of me to enable the situation by me just like still being with him to just simply to not want to hurt him. You know what I mean? Like, I deserved being in love with someone that I really was in love with and like admired, and he deserved to have someone be in love with him, So remembering that kind of keep things in perspective, instead of making me feel like 222 on the clock, instead of making me feel like I was just kind of being a mean person and hurting his feelings, it kind of reminded me of like, no, this is for the better on the long term, even though it's really hurting me and him now. Okay, now I'm answering this one because I really didn't know you could respond to a sticker question with a photo. So this girl literally, Elise, she literally sent in a photo. I was like, what the heck? I didn't really know how to open the photo, but I screenshotted the response and now I'm zooming into the photo. She said, do you find that you have different types of energetic connections with others? For example, there are my soul meet people who I just vibe with where the energy is so high, and there are others where the vibe is lower in quotes, but the connection and energy is just as strong. I caught myself discrediting the interactions I've had with someone because the external factors were chill, but internally the value of the energy is just as high as those exuberant relationships. Ha ha ha, does that make sense? It's just struck me and I wanted to share. Thank you for sharing. I wanted to read that because I feel like so many people are going to find resonance in that. I feel like that, I think that's so valid, and I go through that same thing. Like, dude, I've had so many connections that were mind-blowing of like the potency and the power of the energy that was like shared between us. And I've also had relationships that are so mellow, but they also just have this like weird sense of familiarity. And then I've also had these people who completely feel brand new, but like I'm able to just completely be so open with them for whatever reason. Like, there's so many different dynamics of relationships, and I think that's what makes them beautiful. And I think it's important to not necessarily compare, which I'm honestly speaking to myself with this one too, because I feel like I do that sometimes as well. But I don't think it's worth, like you said, discrediting interactions or relationships that you have with other people, because they're all different. Just like there's different forms of love. Like, love is still love, and there's still so many beautiful connections. And just because there's not like fireworks and sparks and feeling like all this power like from one connection, like it doesn't mean that that's a bad connection if it doesn't have that. And I think each connection serves its own purpose, you know? So I think that's super real. I think it's super valid, and I love that you're acknowledging that. And I think that in of itself is kind of giving you that guidance and assurance that you need. But like, all relationships are worthy and have their place, and just because they're not all going to show up in the same way, and that's what makes them beautiful. And like, I feel like that's what allows you to appreciate each relationship, because each one has a different dynamic that offers you a different thing. Favorite affordable clothing store? Freaking TJ Maxx. Need I say more? Ooh, how to get over a situationship, dog. Because I went through a hardcore, like years ago now, but a really hardcore, powerful situationship. And it stuck with me for so long. And I used to think like, oh, it's because we had so much chemistry and all this stuff, when really like the harsh reality of situationships and why they're so hard to get over, like, it's really common for them to be harder to get over than traditional like relationships. And it's because you didn't have time to actually see the bad, or see why the relationship wouldn't work, or see why you guys weren't compatible. So it's like, obviously it's so hard to get over them when you just are kind of only able to look at these like honeymoon facts, if you will. Like, it's so easy to be like, dude, no, like we're meant to be together, or I just can't stop thinking about him. There's still kind of that infatuation, because also it kind of was never able to land. So you're kind of just wrapped up in potential. No matter, which way you slice the cake, it's like you're more so in love and infatuated with the potential of what could have been rather than the reality of what it was. So I think reminding yourself of that helps. Like, that helped me. Again, kind of gaslighting myself of just being like, it just wasn't what you actually thought it was. And like, that just took me time to accept that it was a fantasy, but eventually it allowed me to be at peace with it. How to make friends in a completely new place. Move 3,000 miles from home. Whoa. Go you, dude. I love the courage. I love you taking a risk. I would say for me, because I feel like I've had to make kind of temporary friends, not temporary friends, but I mean, make friends in temporary locations is what I meant. The biggest thing for me was like trying to put yourself in locations that like-minded people would be. Because I feel like so many people are like, oh, like go out and like go to a bar. I personally don't want to like, those personally aren't the types of people that I feel like I would get along with. So for me, it's like when I was in Santa Teresa, I like went to yoga classes. So I think like going to workout classes really helps. Or like I did the surf camp. That was another great way to meet people. You could go to like a dance class, just something where like even going to a coffee shop. There's so many little things, going to a pottery class. Like literally think of something that would interest you and then like go and do it alone, because I guarantee you're going to find people who obviously are interested in it because they're doing the same thing, who are also alone. So that was like my biggest kind of revelation when it came to new friends. Like not only like getting out of the house, but like doing things where people are choosing to go be in like a public community filled space to intermingle with people. Or you can just come on one of my retreats in the future and then make like all these new besties just inherently because we all bond so hard, This is a good one. How to trust your body. I'm so afraid to use intuition for eating because I would feel out of control. Such a great question. Let me tell you a little story time. As you know, I was just in Costa Rica and I literally thought the least about food that I had in my entire life. Like I didn't think about it. I ate out the most I really ever have in my life. And I was so shocked with how well my body was able just to take the reins when I wasn't stressing about it. To give you a sciencey answer, the problem with when you're like how you said you're afraid to use your intuition or you start to feel stressed out about intuitive eating, that does nothing but then inhibit your body's ability to take the lead, because stress, cortisol, that's your stress hormone, it jacks everything up. There are totally so many physiological responses to having high stress, and it doesn't think that like, oh, if I'm stressed about eating, like it's not really making that big of a deal. It does. Like even the smallest amounts, like when you're overthinking it, it just doesn't lead to anything good. And so if you're like, oh, I'm going to try to eat intuitively, but you're like stressing the whole time, and then it's quote unquote not going the way that you want, you think it's not working when really you're just not actually doing it because you're stressing the whole time. So you need to understand that like your body knows best first. Like when you were a baby, you never consciously were like, okay, I'm done eating. I'm done. Like, I don't want any more breast milk. Like you just inherently and intuitively like knew when you had enough. You would cry when you knew you were starting to get hungry again. Like your body knows best. Like it is your body's job to take care of your physical vessel. Like that is it. Like you are the sole consciousness behind it. So your body is here to be able to fuel itself and take care of itself and heal itself. So you need to trust that your body knows best, better than anyone, better than your ego, better than your overthinking, better than toxic diet culture that's been so wrapped up in your mind for years and years and years. So when you really let that go, and it takes time. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, oh, it's super easy. Like just stop stressing. Like it took me years, and I'm not going to ever hide that. But I think just affirming to yourself that you trust your body and that your body knows best, like have affirmations. Like when you start to overstress about what you want to eat, affirm to yourself, my body knows best. I trust my body. I let my body lead. I let my intuition guide my nutrition. Like just feed yourself with these affirming, encouraging thoughts, and it will help melt the stress away and will actually allow your body to take over and do its thing. And you need to know that like maybe, it's going to take time for you to be able to trust your body and have things to level out. But it's most important for you just to be able to make these intuitive decisions first, and then have whatever your body looks like in your health, whatever, have that follow when the time comes. Love you. Thank you. I love you too. How do you suggest I tap into my intuition more when I'm constantly overthinking? Such a good question. For me, it's breath. I go back to my breath. That's when I really need to meditate. Like I need to silence my brain. When I'm overthinking, that's when my thoughts are going. And I'm like, y'all need to freaking chill. And so that's when I go meditate, and I go in there with my little freaking boss pointing finger, and I say, all y'all bitches need to calm down. So meditating. Journaling also helps, but meditating and like really getting still and just consciously pulling the plug and not energizing all those thoughts and just like letting them go, and intentionally thinking about my breath, or like listening to the creek in my backyard, or listening to meditation music. Like that is really the only way that really gets me to stop and slow down. And then also some like affirmations when you're like consciously throughout the day. If you catch yourself, either change what you're thinking about, change your topic, or affirm to yourself that you let go, that you release overthinking, that you release the need to know, that you release control. Like, dudes, I just did all this so often. Like I've been here so much. Like that's the stuff that helps me so much. Like write a freaking affirmation list in the morning, like saying that you let go of all control, that you let go of the need to know. Like it is so freeing, and it really helps the way you think for the whole rest of the day. All right, you guys, I think that's it. I feel like we did a good amount of questions here. Didn't get through all of them, but definitely a good chunk. I want to thank you guys for listening. If you guys are still holding on with me, I want to really thank you for being so patient with me and my inconsistency. I feel like I've gone through so many shifts, like especially the other day when I was in the gym, I was like, I definitely feel like I'm on a new chapter. I'm on a new level. Like we have turned the page. But I'm really excited just to get back into the swing of things. We're back here. So now you can definitely count on another episode from me next week. So for my affirmation for today, this is something I've really been struggling with the past few weeks. I've really been acting from emotion and really haven't been as mindful as I normally am with my communication, with not acting from my emotions. So my affirmation that I have for today, just something that I really needed to hear and what I've been resonating with. It says, I take a breath before I speak, so my higher consciousness can lead the way rather than my emotions. I take a breath before I speak, so my higher consciousness can lead the way rather than my emotions. That hits me so hard. Like I really have not been doing the best job at that. So I needed to hear that. Anyways, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching or listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube podcast channel already, then definitely go do that. And also, if you want to leave a rating and review, I literally forgot to do an outro. If you want to leave a rating and review, that I would also really appreciate that. It helps this podcast reach more people when it's completely free to you. I need to leave because now I'm just stuttering. But thank you guys so much for all your time. I hope this episode helped you in some way. I'm sending you so much love, and hopefully I'll see you in the next epi. Peace out.